Okay, and we're back. So starting off, one of the first things when I talk to a business, and this is also back in my background for research at corporate America, I would go to the business lines within a business. So we're talking large businesses like Texas Instruments or Brinks and stuff, and they all have their sub businesses, and I would go to them and say, okay, who's your customer? And the very first thing almost every one of them says is everybody, anyone can use our tool, everyone in the world. And I'm like, that's great and all good, but you know what? Like really, generally speaking, there's heavy users. 80%, 20% of customers are 80% of the volume of what you do, and even then, it would take quite a while to get them to nail down. And what I learned was, it is an easier approach is to say, look, before we define your best customers, who are the ones that are a pain in the ass, right? Who are the ones that you earn very little amounts of money from, and yet they take up 80% of your time, right? And this is also just as a sales thing, right? This is one of those things, the easiest way to be more profitable is stop paying attention to those pain in the ass customers, right? And focus on the ones that really contribute a lot.
That's so true, Joe. I have a couple of experiences to relate in that regard. I mean, it's a little bit like buying a house, I think. People say you actually make a house when you buy it. So the traditional worldview is that you make money when you sell it, but buying the right house at the start is where you actually make the money. And I remember when I was working in a service-based business that I was running the company, and our overriding mantra was that we had to make every customer happy. Okay, and I wanted to grow the business, so it was really important. Some of the KPIs were around more revenue, more clients, and then we had this one client, to paraphrase you, who was a pain in the ass. Okay, they were the most demanding. They contributed the most money in terms of revenue, but when one day I analyzed how much it cost to service that client, I actually realized that we weren't making any money on them at all, and they were costing us money. So it cost us, this is a strange concept to wrap your head around, but it actually cost us money to have them as a client. And there was no upside potential. That we had sort of maxed out our potential growth with them. And in the end, I took the decision to fire them. I actually fired them as a client because I realized it was making my team unhappy.
Yeah.
It was actually damaging our business because it didn't let us focus on the upside of the other clients and the potential to grow the business. So this client was consuming all of our bandwidth and actually damaging our business. Even though they brought money into the company, when I actually analyzed it, we were over-servicing them, trying to make them happy. And when we looked at that, it wasn't economical to have them. So after we got rid of them, the morale in the company improved, people were happier, and we actually started to grow.
That's awesome.
So counterintuitively, although people may think watching this, oh, it's really important, I need to have more clients, they're an important client. They might be an important client, but are they adding value to your business? Are they actually, when you look at the your profit and loss at the end of the month, are they costing you money? Are they making you money, or is there more potential growth or opportunities with other clients? So I think it's a really important thing to think about.
Yeah, and by the way, you can quote unquote fire them in a really nice way, right? You can basically find someone else that you can point them to and say, you know what? Hey, we loved your business, but these guys over here are really a better fit for you, and you're going to find them, blah blah blah, right? And get them excited about moving over, and then you don't have any necessarily ill will form between them.
I mean, it's also an opportunity to reset the relationship. You may refer them to another client, so you get a referral fee, or you might make them satisfied and they may return to you, or they may realize that actually recognize the value you do have. I mean, the challenge for us with that particular client was they were trying to squeeze us on margin to the point where it became uneconomical. And then we had to over-service them because they were perennially unhappy. Whereas our service wasn't inferior to any other provider. They were just super aggressive on trying to screw us, basically.
Right. So it's one of those things when you have a big client that's that big and they know it, they know that they are, so much of your market share, right? That you're going to go out of your way to make sure you please them, and they can play that card. Yeah. The other thing I wanted to mention here is, because it's an important thing and we're going to talk about it more later, but the whole more is more mind trap, right? It's if I appeal to everybody, the chances of me growing is better. And it's kind of counterintuitive, but really in reality, you find out focusing, right? Focusing in a niche area and owning that area, being positioned strongly in it, is a far better way. And what made me remember this was when you mentioned how they can nickel and dime you and this and that. It's when you're, who gets paid more money, the general doctor or a specialist like a brain surgeon, right? When you specialize in an area, your chance of actually making profits go way up, right? It's and you have a much more cost. The elasticity, right? You can charge more, and if you don't, then if you don't have that niche in that focused area, it's really, really hard to differentiate yourself and to earn more money.
Yes, I think profitability, efficiency, and margin, these things have to be, really top of mind here. And that, your company may be physically growing in terms of the number of clients or your top line revenue, but are you servicing them as efficiently as you can? Are they the most profitable? Do they have a lot of upside potential in them? And how is your margin? And what can you do in terms of being more efficient and productive to increase your margin, even if you don't raise your prices?
Well, and tell me this, right, if you agree with this. The vast majority of when you talk to businesses and you say, hey, which one of your products is more profitable? And often they don't even know, right? They don't realize they make a lot more money doing this than they do doing this, right? And that's one of the first things you can do is look at your product line and say, you know what? I mean, I think McDonald's was a great example of it, right? In the initial, they were offering everything to everybody, and they said, you know what? We're gonna trim it down. We're gonna order. I think they had 3 things. It was like hamburgers, French fries, and milkshakes, or something somewhat very close to that. And they did the volume and just made a buttload of money because everyone kept coming to them. They were so fast and efficient. It's a really hard thing to get around of like, hey, if I stop doing all these other things, I'm going to lose money. And in reality, you don't. You end up owning a space, and that's much more critical.
Yeah, I think that if I don't know if any of your the viewers today have watched CNBC's The Profit of Marcus Lemonis, but he talks about the profit, the people, and the process. And I think all of those 3 are incredibly relevant. You need to have all of those sort of 3 sides of the triangle, if you like, all need to be tuned in. And a lot of the time, people don't necessarily look at their product portfolio and make sure that they optimize it and see where, some obviously services or products that people offer are loss leaders. So they are things that they use to encourage people to engage with them, and others are profitable and they miss opportunities to do cross sells or upsells or referrals. And sort of the commercial construct of those businesses could be improved exponentially by considering opportunities to do very little extra effort, actually really drive a lot more revenue.
Yeah. And actually, I was trying to look ahead here a little bit because I like I said, I want to make these bite-sized. But the other big thing I see that almost all businesses do is they have this mandate, this drive for finding new clients, right? And they always say, oh, we need to find more customers and get more customers in. And yet they don't actually do much more with the customers they already have. And from everything I've read from a bunch of stuff, especially Dan Kennedy focused a lot, and Joseph Sugarman talk a lot about it, is by far the most profitable things come from your current customers, finding new ways, new things to sell them more of stuff, sell them in different.
I think it's a really great point. I think that people in general are undervalued. So if you think about it in the personal relationships that companies have, I mean, the greatest asset that any company has, I would argue, are its people, both in terms of its staff and also its customers. And the customers are a great source because they're already advocates and ambassadors for your company, either as an opportunity to increase revenue from those customers and launch new services or products to them, and or to use them as evangelists to promote your service. And are you giving them the opportunity to do that? And I think that's a really good opportunity.
I think it's so important. Let's go ahead and stop here, and let's actually start the next one talking about that, because that's a really critical thing that a lot of people don't focus on.